and also to organize this session together with FIA. It's a pleasure. And I also want to say, I think the first three speakers here have actually showed the complexity of what we're talking about here. That we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about smart city, we're talking about how the cities can step up, we're talking about the changes that's actually happening in the world. So I think what I want to show or present here a little bit today is an approach that we've been taking also now through our partners, the United Nations, of how to tackle that and to see it in a holistic fashion. I just need a little bit of the, it's there? Okay, yeah. So I will start here. So we have a program that is called United Smart Cities. And the program actually was set up in 2014, so we actually have some years behind us now. And we started to discuss with the United Nations how can we set up a program that is actually useful on any way for the cities. And we said, but first of all, we need to know, what is a smart and what is a sustainable city? I think the smart city terminology has been used for the last 25 years. And in the beginning, it was started by a lot of multinationals. I think a lot of people are reflecting smart city to technology, ICT, a lot of these things. For us, it's clear that it's much more than just that. And I think when we got the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, it started to really make sense. That a city can only be smart if it's sustainable, clearly. And also for the first time, I would say in the United Nations context, I mean, we've had different programs successfully run within the UN related to cities. There is big smart city programs in China, in different countries. But also with the SDGs, we got a SDG designed for cities. So we have SDG number 11. And I think this makes it even more clear that cities, that's where we need to put the focus. So what we started to do in 2014, is to develop an evaluation method, and I come back to that, how we can look at any city around the world and get a holistic approach to, what is smart and what is sustainable. Is it possible to do a standard? And I think we need to have something like that because we need to measure, we need to see where do we stand, and within a holistic approach, measure and make then the projects that can have the biggest impact and effect of the cities. And we started this, it turned out to a quite long, I would say, exercise. We used almost 3 years. But what we managed in the end is to have 16 UN agencies, cross-sector signed off of the standard or the KPIs that's called United for Smart Sustainable Cities, and I'll come back to that. So you can say in the basis of the whole USC approach is the evaluation, and we start there to see, where do the cities stand. A lot of lack is also in terms of the management and how do you strategize and actionalize the findings of these evaluations. How can you integrate a lot of these things? We heard a lot in the first speakers here about technology. I think we know that the technology exists. We know that there is all kinds of technologies out there, but how do the cities integrate it in the right way? It is connected. Everything is connected. So we need an integration, and the facilitation of the integration, that's really what needs to happen in cities really across the world. It's a lot, and this is, of course, related to capacity building. How can we really support the decision makers, the urban planners, the multi-stakeholder, the ecosystem of cities to actually integrate this and work together? So that's the technology. It's also about financing. We don't need to talk about all these projects in cities if we don't know where we're going to finance that. How can we get better business models to finance the municipal projects? It's scary, actually, when you look at all the issues that cities are facing, specifically also in developing countries. There is no system for it. We have 150 countries with a waste management problem. We don't have a good municipal financing method to get this going. So these are clearly things that you need to take into consideration if you will have a holistic approach to that. And of course, last but not least, how do we engage the citizens into this? Citizens is ultimately, that's the people who are living in cities, right? And we need to engage them, and that's the biggest capital that we have, is the human capital, and we have a lot of creative people who can work with us to develop the cities for the future. So all of these elements is part of the USC approach that we are rolling out in cities worldwide now. This is just to show you the ecosystem of how we are working. You see the United Smart City program in the middle here. We have several other programs, also this U4SCC program that is the standard of UN. But we also have now a global council for the SDGs, and we have also one for 11. That's also part of that. We are working with the UN, different UN entities that is working hard at the moment to localize their agenda. We have the cities, of course, and we have small and big cities from across the world in any region, because we also really need to test the approach that this is suitable for any city. And we have the private sector and the finance sector. And without that, we know. We heard a lot about private sector, and that's the make and break, I think, in the whole Sustainable Development Agenda. This is to show you just the UN framework that is called the U4SCC. The method is set up, as said, on indicators. It is to measure and how cities can become smarter, but also how cities can be more sustainable. It is an approach of 92 indicators. I think in the smart city space there is 430 indicators. So we have deducted it down to 92. It was a big discussion. We have John Smiklas here, who's also been leading the KPI development for the ITU in this. It's under 3 dimensions, and here you already see the complexity: economy, environment, and society and culture, and a lot of cross-cutting issues, clearly. What we understand also that mobility is one of the key sectors here. And we had, while we developed this method, we had the private sector from the mobility side working with us to develop the KPIs for these specific areas, so we are sure that we get projects out of it that is interesting for the private sector. Cities wants to see where they score. There's a lot of measurements and scoring out there. Actually, I'm from Norway, so I'm from the happiest country on the planet. There's a lot of scorings and mechanisms to say that. But we have made now a scoring on cities based on these target values. I think this is from a Switzerland city, very green, as you can say. And we presented this just to a Netherlands city that is just now being evaluated. And he said, I think it will be very green. And he said, I hope it will be very red, because this will be my alibi to ask for support for those areas that we have a problem with. We have also put up the measuring related to the SDGs. Everybody is discussing now how these SDGs, how can we measure that we're actually moving in the right direction on the SDGs on cities. Every indicator is linked to an SDG, as you can see here, more of course related to SDG 11. But it's a new way now of doing this that the cities has been really looking for. And we have so many cities now approaching us to be part of this evaluation. And I think that means that every city is really now looking for a better way to get a roadmap for smart and sustainable development. These are just some of the cities that's been part of the first evaluation of cities. As you can see, it's very south, I would say, on the continents here. We have now massive, also in the north. Every country will be covered by this evaluation to really see that we get everybody on board. This is also, as you can see, a little bit on the method. As I said, it's on the measuring. That's as a basis for what we do. We are then putting in I would say, the expertise. I mean, the UN has a lot of expertise. The UN is related or in every country of the planet. And what we're trying now is to build a lot of this expertise from the United Nations into actually doing all this analysis, making this analysis available for city, for the private sector. And then, of course, is the whole roadmap. How do you take out the most impactful projects? Because that's what it is. How do you do a model scenario? What has the biggest impact on the environment, on the job creation, on the different areas that the cities needs? That's also part of the analysis. It's complex, but you need to put all of these stakeholders together. And of course, as I said, also in terms of the financing and how do you implement these projects. We hear a lot about PPPs. Some people tell me that means cities don't have money. So that's and I think the whole topic of PPPs needs to be developed in a different way. And we need to work cross-sector with the private sector in a very different way in terms of cities. And this is the ideas that we're trying to do. In the UNEC, we have also a big group on public-private partnership to see here, can we do better framework for PPPs? How can we actually use this as an instrument that makes sense for the private sector also to take part in? These are just some of the areas that we are working with. Of course, it's depending where we are. I would say mobility is the top #1 in any country, any city on the planet just now. And of course, electromobility. It is a big issue, and we're trying here really to see. I heard we were discussing what some of the speaker in front of me was talking about the business models. I'm from Norway, and we are quite strong in electromobility. I think we have the third biggest amount of electric cars based on citizens in the world. And Oslo started with a lot of business models for electromobility. And you could ride in the taxi file, you had tax, all of these things. Now we have in Oslo, I think 70,000 electric cars out of 400,000 people living there. All of this business model that was working in the past is not possible anymore. You need to revise that. So of course, in bigger cities here, if you get this push into electromobility, you need to think about the business models, I think, in a very new way. From, I would say, the link from mobility to energy, that's something that every city is concerned about now. How can you do really models here for bringing this together? As I said, waste management is top in developing cities. Everything with digitalization and ICT is top, of course, everywhere. So these are areas that we are very much focused on. Just to sum up, I would say the USC is really a global, holistic city approach, and it needs to be, because if not, we cannot manage the challenges that is in front of us. It is really a focus on the planning and design of the projects. How can we bring everybody around to get the best solution that has the biggest effect for the cities? It's a lot on model scenarios, and I'm also very and this is also something we're discussing with FIA and other. We are setting up now a simulator for smart, sustainable city, that a lot of these issues can be really shown for any stakeholders in the cities. What makes sense? How does this work? It's complex. And it's also knowledge sharing. I mean, we're called United Smart Cities, and that is because we want cities to be joined together to share solutions. There is a lot of cities networks out there, clearly. There's a lot for very big cities and capital cities, but there's very little for small, medium cities. And that's also one of our targets. I just signed last week now in Dubai on Monday, because we are part of the SDG 11 Global Council, that by 2030, we're not going to leave any city behind. It's quite a challenge, but it's an aim we need to have. If we not get everybody with us, we can really not do it. And clearly also, as I said, on financing and bringing the private sector really close into working with the city. And I think you need the facilitation of this. I talked to a minister just now in Netherlands, and she said, Kari, nobody invests in the glue. Everybody just thinks that these things happen on its own, but it really does not. And I think that's what we're trying to do here strongly now also with the mobility sector. We have the KPIs, as you've seen, and the standard we're working on now for the UN. We understand that we need to make it even more advanced, and these are things that we want to work with FIA, for example, on really developing the mobility indicators that we have set that fits for every city in the planet, and we can use that as a basis for making better decisions in the cities. So that's a short overview. I will be here for questions related to the program and anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kari, very much for those comments. I think that gives us a picture of what you are doing with the United Smart Cities program. And it makes it very clear, I think, just the importance of having access to data, and then how you can really turn that into something that is usable and very practical. We're going to keep the program going, and we're going to try and share the moderating duties between myself and President Calderon. I think we have a mixed lineup, English and Spanish speakers, so we'll try and be as flexible as we can, but perhaps we keep going, and we introduce now John Smikulas, who is the Director, Energy Environment with BOMA Canada, and I believe John is part and parcel of the United Smart Cities program, Kari. So maybe can I invite John to come up?
Good morning, everybody. I just thought I'd come up and give a little experience about what I've been doing over the past few years. I've been involved in sort of sustainabilities and smart cities over the past 10 to 12 years. And my key role in this program was as a project manager in developing the key performance indicators. working with various UN agencies, WHO, UNICEF, FAO, UNECE, ITU, et cetera, in developing indicators that aligned with not only UN definitions, UN requirements, but also the Sustainable Development Goals. And over the past 3 years, I've been traveling, unfortunately, around the globe, and working with cities and reviewing their responses and their implementation of these key performance indicators. And it has included cities like Mexico City, Singapore, Dubai, Moscow, large, mega cities. But we've also implemented it in, 2 small cities in Tunisia, Bizerte and Kairouan, Puy in Switzerland, which is about 17,000 people, Ålesund in Norway, Kari's hometown, which is now about 60,000 people. We've also done it in Manizales in Colombia. We're doing it now in Valencia in Spain, Astana in Kazakhstan, and many, many, many more. Krimpen van den Issel in the Netherlands as well. And one of the key things we start to see now is that this is bringing a sort of standardized way for cities to collect information, see where they are in terms of their journey to a smart city, see where they are in terms of their journey to a sustainable city, because sometimes, a city is becoming very, we're going to call it very smart, but it may not be the most sustainable. And there's other cities that are very sustainable, and in some cases we might not call them smart, but they actually are doing some smart things. Smart isn't always about adding in technology. Sustainability isn't always about, reducing growth and, just being green. I've seen projects, around the world that sort of maybe are counterintuitive for people. For instance, Singapore wanted to put in an e-health system. And when they actually started looking at it, and e-health, by that they meant, sort of IT, computers, video links, so that people could, rather than go to the doctor's office, they could have now a video link with the doctor. Then they found out that when they really actually started looking at it, the average person in Singapore lives 500 meters from a doctor's office. It's actually easier for them to walk to the doctor's office and spend all the money on IT. In Moscow, which was, they say, used to be the most congested city in the world, they did something, again, counterintuitive in that they started solving their traffic issues by actually reducing the amount of roads. They actually reduced lanes, increased sidewalks, and got more people walking, but at the same time, a lot more public transport. And public transport in Moscow, actually, they put new routes based on feedback from citizens and based on analysis of SIM card data from cellular phones. So they know where people are going, and so they know where we actually have to have a new metro line, a new bus line, a new tram line, because it follows where people actually want to go, rather than where the sort of the transportation planners want to go. So we've been working with these programs. Glad to work now with Kari and the United Smart Cities, with our friends now at FIA and other organizations. We're always looking for more cities to join. I'm not on a plane enough, apparently, so we need more. And, we want to sort of bring some of the experiences, have cities, there's a lot of cities in our network that are actually want to share what they're doing, want to share how they're solving problems with others, and through our sort of network now, provide sort of the financing and the projects and bring the expertise from the private sector to the cities. So that's just kind of a little overview of sort of what I've done, where we're going, and look forward to further discussions with people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bueno, vamos a invitar ahora a Joaquín Andrés Blanco, que es diputado de la provincia de Santa Fe en Argentina. En Santa Fe precisamente se ha implementado un sistema de movilidad eléctrica y sería muy importante conocer el punto de vista. Por favor, pasa por acá Joaquín Andrés y compártenos los puntos de vista de qué está pasando en Santa Fe. Bienvenido. Hola, qué gusto. Buenos días.
Bueno, buen día. Muy agradecido de formar parte de este panel y contar brevemente nuestra experiencia local en Argentina, provincia de Santa Fe, haciendo eje en una ciudad que es la más importante de nuestra región, que es la ciudad de Rosario, una ciudad portuaria de más de 1 millón de habitantes, pero que es más famosamente conocida a nivel global por ser la casa de Lionel Messi, ¿no? Tenemos el orgullo de que el mejor jugador del mundo nació en nuestra ciudad y realmente es nuestro embajador en el mundo. Brevemente contarles, nosotros en la provincia de Santa Fe construimos una ley en el marco del año 2016-2017, una ley que salió de forma unánime y que incentiva la industrialización y el uso de la movilidad eléctrica, entendida como una estrategia de largo plazo, una necesidad de construir un marco jurídico normativo que genere una sinergia, una alianza público-privada para poder incentivar esta transformación, esta revolución de la movilidad eléctrica, con una visión de pensar a nuestra región de cara a todo el Cono Sur como un foco de producción y de uso de buenas prácticas vinculado con la movilidad eléctrica. Y mientras esto sucede, en paralelo venimos desarrollando en los últimos 25 años en la ciudad de Rosario y toda su región una política que tiene que ver con cómo convertimos en una ciudad amigable a los ciudadanos la ciudad de Rosario. Y nos pusimos un objetivo muy ambicioso que significaba recuperar para los ciudadanos los espacios públicos y fundamentalmente los espacios verdes. En el año 95 la ciudad de Rosario tenía solamente 2 metros cuadrados por habitante de espacio verde y después de una transformación muy importante, una planificación muy importante, en el año 2015 tenemos 12,5 metros cuadrados de espacio verde por habitante. Esto es un hecho concreto, disfrutable por la ciudadanía y que tiene un impacto en la calidad de vida y en la calidad del aire que creo que es muy significativo. Y esto no lo hace 5 años de una gestión de un alcalde. Esto se hace con un plan, se hace con mucha inversión pública y con una articulación público-privado para poder lograrlo. Por otro lado, apuntalamos el sistema de transporte público eléctrico. Nosotros teníamos una tradición en trolebuses, a eso le incrementamos ahora flotas de buses 100% eléctricos con sistema de baterías de litio y estamos en una etapa que nosotros entendemos que es muy importante, en el cual esos buses eléctricos están alimentados 100% por energía renovable, por energía limpia. O sea, no es solamente movilidad eléctrica para mejorar la conectividad de nuestros ciudadanos, sino que aparte es un círculo virtuoso en el cual es la energía y el cambio de la matriz energética, dejar atrás los hidrocarburos para pasar a energías limpias, en lo cual creemos que es el modelo virtuoso en el cual tenemos que aspirar a seguir avanzando en las ciudades para convertirlas verdaderamente inteligentes. Y la tercera estrategia, que es algo que el presidente Calderón enfatizaba, es el programa de prosumidores. Nosotros estamos convencidos en que a través de las energías renovables no solamente incrementamos la calidad de nuestro aire, no solamente somos más amigables con nuestros recursos naturales, sino que aparte es una verdadera revolución en cómo entendemos los sistemas de energía. Ahora el poder no está en las grandes compañías o en las grandes distribuidoras, sino que el poder pasa a ser de los usuarios. Y son los usuarios que a través de paneles solares no solamente generan autoconsumo, sino que tienen la posibilidad de convertirse en proveedores, por eso prosumidores, que venden su excedente de energía a la red y es en definitiva un negocio en el cual tiene una rentabilidad por poner esos paneles y por poder alimentar de energía renovable a la red de las provincias de Santa Fe. Estas 3 iniciativas es las que venimos impulsando con más fuerza, insisto, forman parte de un plan, no corresponden a una gestión, a un partido político, sino que son políticas de largo plazo y estamos realmente encantados con la presentación que hacían recién, porque entendemos que todo esto es más entendible y los ciudadanos se lo apropian cuando puede ser mensurado, cuando puede ser evaluado, cuando podemos construir indicadores. Nosotros construimos en la provincia de Santa Fe algo que para nosotros es muy importante, que es el inventario de gases de efecto invernadero. Tenemos un seguimiento anual sobre cómo va cambiando el impacto de cada uno de los sectores productivos y de la actividad humana sobre la huella que deja en materia de efecto invernadero en la provincia de Santa Fe. Y a partir de esos indicadores es que se piensa la política pública, y a partir de modificar esos indicadores es que queremos que seamos evaluados por el accionar de la política pública. Entonces, realmente nos sumamos a esta iniciativa, creemos que es muy importante y ese es el aporte que estamos haciendo desde Rosario y desde la provincia de Santa Fe. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, diputado. Muy bien, muchas gracias. Bueno, ahora vamos a invitar al escenario a un gran amigo de México y de la FIA y de todos nosotros, a Denis Coderre, que fue alcalde de Montreal y un gran impulsor del automovilismo allá, del Gran Premio, desde luego también un gran impulsor de la movilidad urbana en Montreal. Denis, thank you for coming. You want to join us, please, and share your own experience and visions. Denis es además asesor de movilidad de la FIA también. Gracias.
Hello everyone, my name is Denis Coderre. So, je sais qu'il y a des francophones dans la salle. Montréal est bilingue. Je veux saluer les gens francophones également. I'm from Montreal, and we have a lot of brothers and sisters from Mexico and Latin America. So we are calling ourselves El Latino del Norte. Alors, so I'm happy to be here. I used to be also, and that's what I like about what we're having today. Before mayor, I was a member of parliament. I was Minister of Immigration and Sports in Canada. So all that perspective that we're talking today is important because it has to go with governance. And what I'm trying to do today is to maybe talk about real politics. We spoke a lot about urban mobility, but we need to make sure that we're connecting the dots with all the players. And the reality today is that city matters and that the future lies within cities. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So when we're talking about urban mobility, we will have to talk about urban diplomacy. Because when we're talking with all our friends here from the city perspective, international perspective, institutional perspective, or through national perspective, we need to do in what kind of environment we're playing with and how can we be as efficient as possible. Well, one of our good friends, Jean Todt, who's not only the president of FIA, but also the special envoy from the United Nations on road safety, I think that he says it all. And that's the vision that we should promote, that the future of mobility can sum up in these worlds: safer, cleaner, and smarter. And that's the conviction that we have to fight. And not only we need to change, but we need to learn how to change. But what we have to realize first is the 21st century is a metropolitan century. We can speak about a lot of countries, we can talk about continents, but the reality is that you define the world now through cities. Now, in 2019, more than 50% of the world population lives in cities. In 2030, we're talking about 70%. And by 2100, we talk about 85%. Now remember, in 1950, you had two major megapoles, which mean a population of 10 million. You only had Tokyo and New York. Well, in 2030, we'll have more than 40 of them, and 7 out of 10 will come from Asia. We have all the situation like in Mexico City and all those places. So it's important to look at the numbers because at the end of the day, it's about people. It's about to manage the resource, the waste management, and mobility is economic. And we cannot talk about economy without talking about social development and sustainable development. So when you look at all the numbers that President Calderon shows us, and with all the numbers that we are dealing with, I think that it's a wake-up call that some of our friends from other countries who wants to build walls don't understand. We better put up some doors instead. Now, if we take a look about, as I said, it's everybody's business. Now, the failures of urban renewal reflects the failures of all levels of government to realize that people, not structures, really determine a city's success. And it came out from a wonderful book, Triumph of the City, from Dr. Edward Glaser from Harvard. And that's important. We can talk about smart cities, we can talk about mobility, but we need to talk once and foremost about people. Now, setting the right policies means that we need to put an urban lens. When we talk about governance, and we've done that in Montreal, we've done that in several cities, we need to make sure that every time that you're building up a national policy, you need that urban lens. Because like one of my friends in Canada used to say, in Canada, if you would close the federal government, it would take 3 weeks for the people to notice. If you close the state parliament, it will take about 3 days. Try to close a city. In 3 hours, everybody will talk about it. So everything regarding proximity, what is the closest government to deal with? If you want to have success, you want to make sure that every time that you're making the policies, you have to have that urban lens. But what does it mean, urban lens? Well, it means that every time that you're putting up the legal framework, when you talk about inclusiveness, when you talk about sustainability, prosperity, quality of life, and if you want to be consistent in the policy that you put forward, well, you need to make sure that you think cities first. And if you want to deal with all those issues, climate change, of course, the transport, housing, education, economy, finance, environment, and migration, because that's the new reality. With climate change, we have now a new kind of refugees, it's ecology refugees. And by doing so, if you want to make sure that you want to talk about smart cities or mobility, you need to make sure that you are focusing on which is the best government or level who can make things happen. Now, what we've done in Montreal, and I think what Carrie was talking about is a bit the same. We have what we call 3 steps to get urban mobility and smart city. But the wording is important. First step, you need to know what kind of definition you give to smart city. What does it mean? Does it mean a more safer place? Does it mean more technology? Does it mean more inclusiveness with the people? And that's part of the 440 whatever indicators that you have to take a look at. But if you don't agree among ourselves in what you're talking about, no matter what you want to do, you won't succeed, because nobody will talk the same thing. So that's step number 1. Step number 2, we're talking about planning process and doability process. And my friend here and President Calderon knows that you can have the best policy in the world. You can have the best legislation of the world. But if it's not doable, well, you will have more people who will be against than people who will be in favor of it. So when you talk about governance, when you talk about energy transition, when you talk about what type of mobility you want to do, how can you implement the smart system? When you want to implement electrification. Montreal, Quebec, in Canada, we are the world capital of hydroelectricity. So, but we still need other form of energy. Sometimes it can be the wind. It can be also the sun. The biotechnology helped us also to recuperate from the gas, from the garbage, so we can use that as a form of energy too, not only to heat our houses, but at the same time maybe to, through natural gas, use another type of transportation. That's part also of the strategy you have to put forward. And third, implementation. We have to walk the talk, and we have to be concrete, tangible. That's exactly what you meant here. So in Montreal, you want to build up some agency. You want to make sure that you cut all the red tapes, and you need to make sure that the people who wants to work with you really wants to work with you, and you don't have to wait after everybody, because if you wait after everybody, we have a say in French, it's not the size of the axe that matters, it's the strength of the swing. So we need to make sure that all from the private sector, institutional sector, and political sector, that everybody with the communities, we can make things happen and focus on that. So the implementation, everything from the operational to the structure that you define among yourself is clearly important. We've done that in Montreal, And I think that Montreal is clearly an example, but we have a lot to learn. So it's not just based on ourselves. To finish, I have a series of things here that maybe that what I've said at the beginning, but I think it's important to mention. It's about people. If there's one message that you have to keep, it's about people. And smart city brings smart citizen. When you put forward some apps, you want to make sure that your inclusiveness, you made people participate. If you want to decide the type of mobility you want, you need not only the urban planning, but with the type, you need to make sure that you're inclusive in the process and that the people are getting involved with it. And that's how you make things happen. As I said, no economic development without social and sustainable development. Think global, act local. There's no more boundaries. Not only it's everybody's business, but it touches everybody. And you have to share the best practices. You know, alone you go faster. There's that African proverb. Alone you go faster, together you go further. And I think that's the most important thing. You have to share what we're doing today, and thanks for the invitation, and thanks for FIA with the E-Race and the Smart Cities Conference tomorrow. What we're doing is we're sharing the best practices. And, you know, at the end of the day, there's no plan B to the planet. If you want to make sure that things will happen, well, maybe if there's a good idea at one place, it's the same mission, it's the same goals, it's just we need to make sure that how can we make things doable. As I said, you define the world, I think, through cities, not countries and continent. Doesn't mean that the other level don't count. But if you want to make sure you succeed through the urban lands that are inevitable, I think it's critical in the process. Dr. Gleiser said also adaptability is critical. It's not, you know, a one way of thinking. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And you need to adapt yourself. And through the climate change, through the political scope, through the environment that you work with, if you want to make sure you need to succeed, you need to make sure that you can adapt yourself. And everybody is part of the solution. You have to work with all the clubs from FIAs. We need to work with all the community organization, the other institution, level of government. And if you adapt yourself and you put, like we say, some water in your wine, you will be able to go further. Once and foremost, it's about education. It's about change of culture. It's about change of behavior, and that's how you will succeed. Resilience. Montreal is one of the cities in Canada who's part of the Resilience Foundation, and you need to put forward not only a strategy on proximity, but a strategy on prevention. Too many times we are reacting to a situation. The time has come that if you want to make sure that the Declaration of Paris at COP21 works, you need to build up that kind of prevention tool. So last and foremost, willingness and commitments of all the players. You can have the best ideas in the world. If people are not committed, if you don't have that kind of willingness, nothing will happen. So that's my thoughts. Montreal have a lot to learn. We've done a lot, but you know, by being together like today, I think that we give ourselves all the chances in the world to make things happen. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Denis. Thank you, Denis. Thank you. Well, let's go. We have some minutes left, so we'll try to organize a quick discussions about smart cities and mobility and other stuff. And I want to start with Kari. Le voy a preguntar a Kari si ella pudiera tener la oportunidad de dar una sola recomendación. Kari, if you have the chance to talk with a mayor of Mexico City, even the president of Mexico, and they will obey you about your recommendations. You have the chance to make one single recommendation to Mexico City. What would you suggest?
That's an easy one, because I would invite you here and now, Mexico, to join United Smart City, and that because Mexico, you know, as such a large city in the region here, but also for the world, it has also responsibility to share, you know, what's happening here, but also, you know, bring and be part of a bigger context for cities. So I would invite Mexico to join, to be evaluated, to be part of the program, and also be part of a lot of the activities that we are doing, because there's a lot of good things happening here. I've been in contact with your university here. I think we could have a very good exchange of experiences and really put also Mexico in the sustainable global agenda, what we're working on through the UN. So I would really recommend and welcome that.
Great. Well, good to be part of this great global effort in order to change the world through the cities. And John, suppose that Mexico City is already inside that, or they accepted that suggestion. What will be the next step that Mexico City should take in order to be a smart city?
From my experience, the most important thing that Mexico City needs to do is to clearly define the strategy. A lot of cities have started down the road of technology first, and when they implemented technology, they then turned around and said, okay, now what? And because so much of Smart City was pushed by the technology companies, they wanted you to buy things. Stand back, have a clear vision, have a clear strategy, and have it centered around what do we need to do to make the lives of our citizens better? And then engage in this sort of global cooperation with other cities and help to develop the program as well.
Thank you, John. Perfect. Now, Joaquín, México tiene un problema muy grave, al igual que Rosario y Santa Fe, de falta de espacios verdes, ¿no? Esta es una gran ciudad que tiene muy pocos espacios verdes. ¿Cómo le hicieron allá en Rosario, en Santa Fe, para ampliar, para multiplicar por 6 los espacios verdes por habitante? ¿Qué le dirías tú en ese orden a la jefa de gobierno de la Ciudad de México, al alcalde o al jefe de gobierno y al presidente? Y también en la experiencia que tuvieron de masificar el transporte eléctrico, ¿cuál sería el paso más difícil y el más importante que debiera darse en la Ciudad de México para eso?
Gracias, presidente. La respuesta con espacio verde es largo plazo. No hay forma de pensar en una transformación de esas características, de ganar tanto metro cuadrado por habitante, si no son políticas de largo plazo, y eso necesitas necesariamente un acuerdo político, interpartidario, y eso se traduce en un plan. Y por otro lado, tener un gran acuerdo ciudadano. El resultado de Rosario con respecto a los espacios públicos se dio y fue exitoso porque los ciudadanos se apropiaron. Y porque ese espacio verde fue pensado como un espacio público de calidad, en el cual los ciudadanos de los sectores más populares, como los más adinerados, podían concurrir en igualdad de condiciones y podían disfrutar de ese espacio. Entonces fue un reclamo y ya es una política de Estado, ya ningún gobierno va a poder ir para atrás. Cada vez los rosarinos queremos más espacios verdes. Y largo plazo se traduce en que una de las estrategias fue, por ejemplo, construir de cero un bosque. En la ciudad de Rosario construimos un pulmón verde, que es el Bosque de los Constituyentes. Son más de 80 hectáreas en las cuales se transformó realmente en un ejemplo de cómo la ciudad puede permitirse destinar suelo a las futuras generaciones. Y en eso se convirtió el espacio del bosque. Entonces, acuerdo, planificación, largo plazo y apropiación de los ciudadanos. Y con respecto a la movilidad eléctrica, nosotros teníamos enormes problemas de movilidad. Teníamos necesariamente que ir a un cambio de matriz y la movilidad eléctrica fue parte de todo un sistema en el cual, por supuesto, la bicicleta pública del uso como tienen tan extendido en esta ciudad es un elemento central, y el transporte eléctrico formó parte de una estrategia junto con el desarrollo tecnológico. Evidentemente que eso vino de la mano cuando diferentes compañías a nivel global pudieron mejorar sus productos, pudieron mejorar sus rendimientos, pudieron tener buses cada vez más competitivos, y eso permitió paulatinamente modificar y cambiar la flota de Rosario y insertarla en este plan de movilidad sostenible que realmente está todavía en proceso, ¿no? Nunca decimos que es un proceso terminado, sino que sigue avanzando. Pero estamos muy entusiasmados con el resultado que está dando, sobre todo en términos de lo que planteaba acá el amigo, que tiene que ver con la cultura, que tiene que ver con la educación, el impacto muy positivo que tuvo en los adolescentes y en los jóvenes, saber que ese transporte público que estaban tomando estaba siendo alimentado por energía renovable, por energía verde. Eso genera un cambio de conciencia, y eso realmente son cambios de paradigma que realmente hacen que seamos muy entusiastas con la aposta que dejamos a las futuras generaciones en materia de compromiso contra el calentamiento global.
Gracias. So Denise, let's assume you are now, after being mayor of Montreal, you are now mayor of Mexico City. And I hope, I'm sure you will be mayor of Montreal as well next, again, but anyway. So look at the city, 22 million inhabitants, sprawling model, air pollution, traffic congestions. So where to start?
I used to work with Mayor Mancera, and we have to pay tribute for him because not only he was really involved internationally, but locally, he tried some of the gesture. Of course, what you have to focus on is what I call the living together agenda, meaning that you need a balanced approach between openness and vigilance. You need to focus on the safety and at the same time on the social acceptability. But what we are living more and more, we have to reshape the urban planning. Usually we were building roads by the amount of cars that pass. Now it's not the same. It's a new quality of life. You have the new generation have less car because they live where they work in the same area. So we need to focus on urban planning, I would suggest. You need also to define other way of transport. You will have electric cars, but you have the shared car too. You have the bicycle, you have the scooters, you have all those things that you have to put together. But if you don't have, one, the inclusiveness, and two, the legal framework. I know that you have a new constitution here. Some of the people don't enjoy that. But if you focus on the legal frameworks to provide more tools to work with, and instead of developing all those silos or all those political territories, to give that consistent approach and the process of decision making where you will be able to put more. You invest millions of dollars when you were president in urban mobility, in buses, in subways and stuff like that. But sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and it's always somebody other's fault instead of assuming your role. So you have to provide the tools of the decision makers for the new mayor of Mexico, but we will make sure that it's not just a local thing, it's everybody's business, and we have to make sure that every decision that we're making here will have an impact in Argentina and everywhere, and by that shared program process, I think we can succeed.
Thank you. Well, we have 5 minutes left. Just last question to all of you, whoever wants to no? Excuse me. Yeah, let me finish with the panel, and I will pass the floor to Andrew. So the question is, think about the real resistances to the change. For John was talking about to reduce even lines and roads, and to increase more space for people, for bicycles, for trolleys, etc. But the point is how to overcome the resistances. For instance, in transport, we have 1,000 and 1,000 microbuses here in Mexico City, owned by the drivers, and they are making an incredible resistance. When we make the Metropolitan train, for instance, they had the mandate to connect to the new Metropolitan system. They deny that because they prefer to use the traditional thing. That's one resistance. In your experience, what could be the best way to address that problem? And the other, how to persuade the drivers that everybody wants to drive his or her own car. And whenever you talk about to reduce spaces for cars, say, oh my God, no, especially in FIA, a lot of members say, well, what are you doing with us? How can you move and push for the change? Anyone? Carrie? Or?
Thank you. I think it starts with young people. Because, I mean, I can just look at my own children, and I mean, not even, they're vegan and I know everything, but, my daughter says she's never want to own a car. They want to use these different models of car sharing, all of these things. So I think it really starts with education. It starts in the school, that this triples up to the parents and upwards. So I think it's a mix of as we discussed here, a lot of elements, but it also needs to be really the awareness of and they are aware. I mean, they're very concerned now of the future, a lot of the young generation. So I think it takes so much to convince that these are models that we need to implement to save our environment and all of these things. So I think really, hand in hand with the technology, the education, the decision makers. I mean, it's an ecosystem that needs to be balanced and be integrated to have the effect that we want to, right?
I would suggest that, and I love my car, I would suggest efficiency and urban planning. What you've shown in your picture in Korea to change a highway from urban boulevard or whatsoever, more green space, more, that's one of the way I would suggest. But efficiency. Now we've been building, and it will be ready by 2020, an electric train. And we built 60 kilometers, 27 stations. And the fact that, of course, the new generation have less car, but you have to build up the transition for the older one. And I think that if you're efficient, if you go fast, traffic in Montreal costs $3 billion. So it is an economic issue too. So if you build up economy with that social conscious and the sustainability conscious, I think that you can, the three are related and you can make things happen.
Anyone else? John?
From having traveled to cities around the world, I think one of the clear things I see to do this is clear vision, clear regulations that will make sure that people are doing the right thing. You want to promote the right thing, and you want to have a government that supports the going the right thing, and that's all within the urban planning context. But you have to have there has to be political will to actually implement these things, and then where you're affecting people, make sure you address those. If it's the drivers of these minibuses, make sure we address how they're going to integrate in the new system, how they're going to maintain their jobs, how they maintain their incomes, rather than just implementing and say, well, now, you do whatever you have to do.
Solamente agregar, coincido con todo lo que plantearon mis colegas, pero el cambio cultural generacional es impactante y es acelerado. Y vamos a una generación que va a compartir y colaborar mucho más que nuestra generación. Y en eso está una cultura digital, pero también una generación que no entiende tener un capital estacionado, tener un automóvil en promedio 22 horas estacionado durante el día. Y eso la generación joven no está dispuesto a invertir ese dinero ni a tener ese capital inmovilizado. Y ese cambio entre la revolución tecnológica, la legislación, pero lo que más fuerte viene es el cambio cultural que tienen las nuevas generaciones. Bueno, tenemos que estar a la altura de las circunstancias de este nuevo mundo.
All right, look, thank you very much. I do see there are some questions, but honestly, I've just got to jump in and say I think we're hard up against time. We have one more little thing to show you in a moment. But first, if I can just maybe thank President Calderon and all of the contributors today, the panelists. President Calderon, I think we have to acknowledge from the FIA's point of view, we are very pleased with the contribution and the thought leadership that you are bringing to our Environment and Sustainability Commission, and I think we've seen some of that today, the debate that has been generated and the ideas that you are helping us to dig into. Can I also say we are very excited to be working with Kari and her organisation, and I think it brings some great capability and knowledge to the challenges that we're seeking to address for our members and for the major cities around the world, and we're very proud to have Denny on board with us as well. Tomorrow we will be entering the third season of our Smart Cities program, and perhaps just before we do that, I think we have a video that I would just like to play which provides a little bit of context about what is the FIA Smart Cities program. So if we've got that keyed up and ready to go, can we maybe just play the short video and provide some context about the past season as we enter the new season of Smart Cities.
To make noise.